Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. So yeah, you start your day with the sound of an excavator demolishing your shed without having a single clue in the world. Why the hell is this happening? I mean, I get it. I've had more than a couple of complaints from the so-called HOA in the past few weeks regarding the renovations I did recently to my shed, since it was a safety hazard, and almost collapsed due to getting damaged by the few storms we had in the past couple of years. For all I know, I got all of the licenses I need to proceed with rebuilding this shed the way it was, and that's all I did, by the way. Didn't add any extensions to it or anything of that sort, but the crazy HOA president didn't see it that way and insisted that I take it down completely because obviously I added more to it and took advantage of the situation and did what I always wanted to do: build a bigger shed. First of all, I had every right to do so on my damn property, 'cause well, it's my property, and I wasn't violating any rules or bothering any neighbors if I did so. But I didn't, I really didn't. I just renewed the thing because it wasn't safe anymore to keep it in that poor shape. I got visited by many inspectors in the past few weeks due to having complaints from HOA that I had illegal buildings on my property, but it didn't really take them long to know for a fact that these claims were all false, and they would leave eventually without reprimanding me for any violations. Well, as expected. Of course, these pointless visits drove that HOA jerk mad. He wanted a piece of me, that's for sure, and on this day he came to get it. Somehow he managed to score himself an excavator and decided to drive it through my shed and take care of this problem himself. Didn't even know the jerk could operate this kind of stuff, but I learned later that at one point that was a job he had in his younger years, and probably wasn't hard for him to pull some strings and get someone to let him into an excavator they didn't probably own. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I woke up to the sound of my newly renovated shed being crushed by this piece of trash, driving an excavator through it without a care in the world. It took me a moment to realize that this was actually happening and on my property nonetheless, and all I could do at the moment is go on autopilot and do exactly what I did next. I went inside my house, grabbed my registered rifle and came out guns blazing, and started shooting at him and that thing without even giving him a single effing warning. The moment he heard gunshots, he stopped immediately, ducked inside the cabin for a moment, then eventually found himself a chance to get the hell out of there and run for his life away from that deadly situation. I would like to say that I wasn't shooting to actually hurt him, but honestly, that would be just plain lies. Maybe 6 or 7 police cruisers arrived on the scene and stopped right in front of my property, had me drop my weapon, then detained me before they asked me a single question. Completely understandable though. But once they heard my side of the story and allowed me to show them the footage my cameras caught, they uncuffed me and had me go grab my registration for my weapon and wanted me to point them to the house of that guy I first shot at. And I did. Some of them went in the direction of his house, got him out of there, handcuffed him, and shoved him in the back of one of their cars. Since rebuilding that shed cost me over $7,000. The charge of malicious destruction of property he caught turned out to be a felony in fact, and not a simple misdemeanor, and he ended up getting 5 years in prison plus a $2,500 fine. And honestly, we're just getting started here. I'm surely suing him for the damages, and he also seems to be under a lot of fire for the excavator he managed to steal with the help of an insider that eventually got caught up in all of that crap as well. It just looks awful for him in the long term. As for me, I was treated like a sane man that found himself in a horrible situation and had to use force to defend his property and family from grave harm, and simply did what he had to do with the legal means that was at his disposal. I sat in my car, trying to calm down. It wasn't easy when your blood was boiling and your heart was racing. I had just been humiliated in front of the entire neighborhood by my nemesis Karen. She always had to one-up me, Always had to make me look bad. But not today. Today I had a plan. You see, Karen and I have been rivals since we were kids. We grew up in the same neighborhood and went to the same school. We were always competing, whether it was for the top grades, the lead in the school play, or the attention of the cute boy down the street. It didn't matter what it was, Karen had to win. As we got older, things didn't get any better. We both went to the same college, and even though we were in different majors, Karen still managed to make everything a competition. She would brag about her grades, her internships, and her job offers. I tried my best to ignore her, but it was hard when she was constantly in my face. After college, we both moved back to the neighborhood. Karen got a job at her father's law firm, while I started my own business. It was a small boutique that sold handmade jewelry and accessories. I loved my job, but Karen couldn't resist the chance to make things difficult for me. She would come into my shop and criticize everything, from my designs to my pricing. It was like she was trying to drive me out of business. But I wasn't going to let her win. I had a plan, and it was going to be epic. It all started a few weeks ago, when Karen threw a party at her house. She had invited everyone in the neighborhood, including me. I was hesitant to go, but I figured it would be a good chance to network and meet some new customers. Plus, I had a plan. I arrived at the party, looking my best in a dress I had designed myself. Karen was there, of course, wearing a designer outfit that probably cost more than my entire boutique. She came over to me with a smirk on her face. "Nice dress," she said, looking me up and down. "Did you make it yourself?" I smiled sweetly. "Yes, I did. Thank you for noticing." Karen rolled her eyes. "Well, I hope it's better quality than your jewelry. I heard that one of your necklaces fell apart on a customer." I could feel my blood boiling, but I kept my cool. "I'm sorry to hear that. I stand by the quality of my products, but if there was a problem, I would be happy to fix it." Karen just laughed. "Good luck with that. Your business is never going to make it." That was the moment I had been waiting for. I excused myself and went to the bathroom. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. "Hey, it's me," I said when the person on the other end picked up. "Is everything ready?" "Yes, it's all set," the person replied. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" "I'm sure. I've had enough of Karen's crap. It's time to take her down a peg." The person on the other end chuckled. "All right then, let's do this." I hung up and took a deep breath. I looked at myself in the mirror and smiled. It was time to show Karen who was boss. I left the bathroom and made my way to the backyard, where most of the partygoers were gathered. Karen was there, holding court as usual. I walked up to her and tapped her on the shoulder. "Excuse me, Karen, can we talk for a minute?" Karen turned to me with a look of annoyance on her face. "What do you want?" "I just wanted to clear the air between us. I know we've had our differences in the past, but I think it's time we put all that behind us." Karen looked at me suspiciously. "What are you up to?" "Nothing," I said, holding up my hands in a gesture of innocence. "I just want to start fresh. Can't we be friends?" Karen hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, sure, friends." I smiled. "Great, now I have a surprise for you." I turned around and signaled to someone who was standing off to the side. A few moments later, a group of people came out carrying a large banner. They unfurled it, revealing a picture of Karen with the words, "World's Best Lawyer" written above it. Karen's face went from confusion to anger in a matter of seconds. "What the hell is this?" she yelled. "You see, the picture I printed on that banner was a horrific picture of her. I've had it for some years now. It was taken back when we were at school, and let's just say that Karen is not really ugly or anything like, but that one picture was a terribly hideous one for her, to be honest. And I knew there will be time for it to be of use to me. So yeah." I stepped forward and said, "It's a tribute to you, Karen. We wanted to show you how much we appreciate all the hard work you do." Karen was seething. "This is ridiculous. Take it down now." I shook my head. "I'm sorry, Karen. We can't do that. We worked really hard on this, and we want everyone to see it." Karen took a step toward me, her fists clenched. I said, "Take it down now." I didn't back down. "No, Karen. This is our way of showing you how much we respect you. If you can't handle it, that's not our problem." Then Karen snapped and went at my neck, but I was ready for her. I sidestepped her attack and grabbed her by the arm, twisting it behind her back. She let out a scream of pain, but I didn't let go. I leaned in close to her ear. "I'm not going to let you bully me anymore, Karen," I whispered. "I'm done playing your games. From now on, we're going to be equals, and if you can't handle that, well, I guess you'll just have to suffer the consequences." Karen struggled for a few more seconds, but then she went limp. I released her and she stumbled backwards, rubbing her sore arm. The rest of the partygoers were staring at us, their mouths agape. I could see the fear in Karen's eyes as she looked around, realizing that she had just lost control of the situation. I smiled at her, feeling a sense of triumph. "Enjoy the party, Karen. I'll see you around." And with that, I walked away, having a good feeling that I had never felt before. I had finally beaten Karen at her own game, and there was no going back. From now on, things were going to be different. Hey everyone, I've got a wild story from my college days to share. This happened almost 10 years ago, back in February 2009. I was working full-time and going to college full-time. It was a hectic period, but nothing compared to what happened one day after my morning chemistry lab. I had just finished my chemistry lab and was driving from campus to my job when I realized my wallet was missing from my purse. I had used it that morning, so I knew it was gone. Panicking, I called my credit card company and found out there was a recent transaction at a local bar for a large tab. Instead of claiming fraud and giving up on the rest of my wallet, I called the police to report it stolen. However, the police told me to contact a different jurisdiction because my school was on a reservation. When I called the reservation police, they said it wasn't their jurisdiction since I wasn't sure the wallet was lost on campus. My frustration was through the roof. Then came the moment when my inner detective kicked in. I've always been good with people, having worked in retail for years. I called the bar where my card was used and explained the situation, providing the last digits of my card number. The luckiest part was that the woman I spoke to was the server who had waited on the thief. She gave me some information she legally shouldn't have, but my story must have resonated with her. She told me the tab was high because the thief left a huge tip and said his girlfriend, me apparently, was treating him. He was with 2 other people who paid with their own credit cards. She even gave me the name on one of those cards. Feeling a bit shady but determined, I used a customer database to find a phone number for the non-thieving gentleman who paid for his own tab. I built up the nerve to call him a couple of days later, claiming to be a private investigator. Me. "Hello, I'm a private investigator. You may be considered an accomplice to a crime if you don't provide the name and phone number of the person you dined with at bar name." Innocent guy. "I should call my lawyer before talking to you." Me. "If you cooperate, I'll make sure you're not held accountable." He was nervous but eventually gave me the name, though he didn't have a phone number. With the thief's name but no phone number, I turned to social media. The name led me to a private Facebook profile. Back then, Facebook allowed status banners to be visible. His status was complaining about a chemistry lab test, the same test I was about to take. I didn't recognize his face, but I was sure my professor could identify him. I printed his Facebook page and took it to my chemistry professor. I explained the situation, and he confirmed that the student sat at the corner of my table. It made sense because in chemistry lab, we left our bags at the front to avoid contamination. That was when he must have stolen my wallet. Working with my professor, the campus police came in during class and arrested the thief. The best part, he was on probation for another crime and ended up in jail for this one. I wasn't part of the trial, but I explained my tactic to the reservation police, who praised my initiative. I even received compensation checks from his prison, though they were only $2 each until my $50 wallet loss was covered. Looking back now, I hope he's got his life together. I didn't remember much of him in class since I was so focused on my studies. We all make mistakes, but it seemed his youth was marked by a series of bad choices. Public records show he's still struggling to find the right path. So that's my story of how a chemistry lab thief got what he deserved. It was a crazy experience, but in the end, justice was served. Hey everyone, I just had the most satisfying encounter and I had to share. Here's the story of my 4th of July in our trailer park, which used to be a community for people over 55, but hasn't been for at least 5 years now. I'm a 30-year-old woman, living with my 2 amazing roommates, my 73-year-old grandma and my 94-year-old great-grandmother. Yesterday, I went to the grocery store to pick up our prescriptions. On my way out, I saw a $35 value pack of fireworks and thought it would be perfect for the 4th of July, which was the next day. My grandma and great-grandmother were super excited about it, which made me even more excited because I love setting off fireworks legally. So here's what went down. At sunset, I went outside to set up for our little fireworks show. I moved the cars, cleaned up the area, wet the ground to cool it down, and even dampened the house and bark dust. I also set up a 5-gallon water bucket about a third full to put our used fireworks into. In our area, we can't have fireworks that shoot into the air, only fountains and similar types. Some of my neighbors had the big ones from other states, but I'm not one of them. I helped my 94-year-old great-grandmother down to the driveway, and we started setting off some smaller fountains. The snaps and crackles surprised us, but we were having a blast. About 15 minutes in, a car stopped and waited for our current fountain to finish, or so I thought. An elderly woman, probably in her 70s, got out and shouted at us. "Elderly woman, you are not allowed to shoot off fireworks on park property." I looked at her, confused. "Me, what did you say?" "Elderly woman, you are not allowed to shoot off fireworks on park property. If you continue, you will be put up for eviction." "Me, are you park management?" "Elderly woman, no, but I am the head of the park's rules committee. I have been since I moved here in 2016. I was dumbfounded because we had lived there since 2014 and had never heard of this committee." "Elderly woman, it is in the rules. You need to read up on them and stop violating the rules, or I will have you kicked out." She finally left, and I scoffed a little. My grandmas were both shaken and told me to stop, but I felt petty. I remembered that my phone had been recording the whole time because I was filming our fireworks. I decided to go for a walk to find out who this lady was. I spotted some familiar neighbors who had lived there for over 20 years and asked them about the Park Rules Committee. Neighbor 1, Park Rules Committee? What's that? Neighbor 2, never heard of it. Neighbor 3, no such thing. We've been here for decades. I told them about the lady and showed them the video. They were dumbfounded and said she was full of it. As I walked back, I saw her standing in her front yard, staring at me. Her house was right across from my neighbor's house. I pointed at her and yelled, "Me, hey, there she is, it's the head of the Park Rules Committee." She glared at me. "Elderly woman, I am the head of the Park's Rules Committee." An elderly man walking his dog scoffed. "Elderly man, no you're not, lady. Happy 4th. She was furious and stormed back into her house. But the best part was yet to come. Remember my neighbors? They were around my age, and when I told them what happened, they started setting off the biggest and loudest fireworks they had. We all live pretty close by, so I hope she enjoyed her 4th of July. I'll let you all know when I get our eviction notice. Happy Independence Day. Stay petty, America." That was the highlight of my 4th of July. Now, every time I see her, I can't help but smile. I guess some people just can't stand to see others having fun. You see, Adam and I are no strangers to the shooting range. We're just a couple of regular guys looking to blow off some steam and have some fun. Now, the range is usually a pretty chill place, but this day was destined to be different. We walk in, grab our ear protection, and load up our guns. Just as we're about to start shooting, we notice her. The quintessential Karen, and of course, she's accompanied by her poor 12-year-old kid who seems like he's seen it all before. We decide to ignore them and focus on our shooting. But obviously, Karen had different plans. She starts pacing around, loudly complaining about everything. The noise, the smell, you name it. I glance at Adam and we share a knowing look like, here we go. Karen then picks up her gun, a Glock by the looks of it, and starts waving it around as if she's auditioning for a Hollywood action movie. I lean over to Adam and whisper, "This lady's a few rounds short of a full magazine." Adam chuckles and says, "Yeah, and I bet she's gonna make sure we know it." As if on cue, Karen saunters over to us, "Excuse me," she says in that tone that instantly makes you want to roll your eyes, "but you boys are making way too much noise. My precious angel here can't concentrate with all this racket." Now let me tell you, our shots were on point, but they weren't anywhere near as noisy as Karen's demands. We exchanged glances again, barely containing our laughter. "Sorry ma'am, we'll try to keep it down." Karen huffs, not satisfied, and walks away with an eye roll. Adam and I continue shooting, occasionally stealing glances at each other, and mimicking her over-the-top mannerisms. We're just having a bit of fun, nothing malicious. But apparently Karen has her own idea of fun. She marches back over with a really angry face. "You think this is a joke, huh? Mocking me and my son?" I'm about to explain that we weren't mocking her, but Adam beats me to it. "Oh, come on now, ma'am. We're just here to enjoy some shooting. Lighten up a little." Well, that was the last straw for Karen. She raises her gun, pointing it directly at Adam. My heart starts racing, and I'm ready to intervene if things get worse. Adam, though, remains remarkably calm. "You sure you want to go down this path, ma'am?" he asks with a steady voice. Karen smirks, thinking she has the upper hand. "What are you gonna do about it, tough guy?" And that's when Adam drops the first bombshell. "Well, for starters, I'm an Air Force pilot. Pretty good shot, too." But Karen, being Karen, doesn't just back down. "Oh please, you're just bluffing to scare me. I'm not buying your act. If you don't stop this nonsense right now, I swear I'll hurt you myself." I exchange a quick glance with Adam. Things are escalating fast, and Karen's not backing down easily. But Adam's not one to give up that easily. He takes a deep breath and with a serious expression tells her, "All right, you want another fact, here it is. I have a brain tumor, Karen, terminal. I've got nothing to lose, really. So go ahead, shoot me if you think that'll prove something. In fact, if you do, you'd actually be doing me a favor." I can feel the tension in the air, and Karen's bravado wavers for a moment. Her grip on the gun falters. You're lying," she stammers. Adam's look never wavers. "Do I look like I'm lying? Take a good look at me, Karen. This is a man who's staring death in the face, and let me tell you, I'm not scared of dying." Karen seemingly realizes the gravity of the situation. She lowers her gun slightly, uncertain of what to do. That's when Adam goes for the final play. "You see that guy behind me?" He nods in my direction. "He's not bluffing either. He's got a clear shot, and if you make one wrong move, he's going to shoot you dead right in front of your kid. Self-defense, of course. So is that really what you want?" Karen's expression turns from defiance to hesitation, then outright terror. Her son is looking at her with wide eyes, realizing just how serious the situation has become. She glances from Adam to me, clearly torn between her ego and the harsh reality in front of her. In that moment, when the range is dead silent and all eyes are on Karen, she slowly lowers her gun to the table. Adam doesn't waste a second. He moves forward with lightning speed, disarming her before she even comprehends what's happening. The gun clatters to the ground, and Adam pins her down with practiced ease. I'm on the phone with 911, explaining the situation as calmly as I can. The range officer hurries over with wide eyes as he takes in the scene. "What the hell just happened?" Adam shoots him a wry smile. "Just your average day at the range, huh?" It's not long before the cops arrive. They review the security footage, confirming our side of the story. Karen is handcuffed, her wild threats reduced to desperate pleas. As the officers lead Karen away, she shoots one last death glare at Adam. But he just stares back with a cold expression. The range officer pats Adam on the back again, this time with even more respect. "You handled that like a damn pro," he says. Adam shrugs, "Just doing what needed to be done. Plus I am a pro," he says with a chuckle. And that's how our day at the shooting range turned into an unexpected encounter with an entitled Karen. A moment of tense standoff, and a dramatic takedown that would make any action movie proud. So let's just say, don't mess with Air Force pilots. Don't underestimate the power of a well-timed truth bomb, and definitely don't bring your entitled attitude to a shooting range. Because sometimes, life throws you curveballs, and you better hope you've got a guy like Adam by your side to knock them out of the park. Edit. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to mention earlier. The truth about Adam's so-called brain tumor. Yeah, that was a bluff. Adam didn't actually have a tumor or anything remotely close to it. He later admitted that he just came up with that on the spot to throw Karen off balance. Classic Adam, always thinking on his feet. After the whole ordeal, as we were packing up our gear and heading out, I turned to Adam with a smirk. "So, brain tumor, huh? That was quite the ace up your sleeve." Adam grinned back at me. "Well, desperate times call for desperate measures. Besides, it seemed to do the trick, didn't it?" We both laughed, shaking our heads at the absurdity of the situation. As it turns out, even a little white lie can go a long way in the right circumstances. And honestly, who could blame Adam for trying everything in his power to defuse that situation? This happened roughly 25 years ago when I was in my early 20s. At the time, I was working part-time nights at UPS in the next town over. I was young and eager to move out of my parents' place to gain some independence. I had a couple of friends, let's call them Tony and Josh, who had a spare room available. I had known them for a couple of years and we got along great. After some discussions, we agreed on a monthly rent, and I moved in with them. A couple of weeks after I moved in, Josh came up to me. "Josh, hey, I talked to Tony, and we need $50 more a month from you than we originally agreed on." I was pissed. My budget was already tight, and I probably wouldn't have moved in if I had known they were going to raise the rent. Despite my frustration, I tried to make it work. Living with Tony and Josh wasn't too bad at first. There were a few small problems, but nothing major. However, the little issues started piling up. Things like Josh never doing his share of the cleaning and Tony always having friends over late at night when I needed to sleep for my UPS job. It was enough to make me start looking for a new place right away. A couple of months later, I found another place with some new friends I had made. I informed Tony and Josh that I was moving out and gave them the date. "Josh, what? You're moving out? Why?" Tony was surprised, but Josh seemed a bit angry. "Tony, can we talk about this? Why are you leaving?" I explained to Tony that the rent increase right after I moved in, combined with the other minor issues, made me want to find a new place. "Tony, raised your rent? What are you talking about? I'm paying extra so that you could stay here." That's when everything came to light. I found out that Josh, who had the master bedroom and bathroom with 3 times the space I had, was getting his rent for $50 a month. Tony and I were paying the rest. I was furious, but Tony was even more pissed. He couldn't believe Josh had been lying to both of us and pocketing the extra money. Tony decided he'd had enough and moved out the next month. Since Tony and Josh worked at the same company, Tony told their boss about some of the things Josh had been doing at work. "Tony, hey boss, I need to talk to you about something. Josh has been slacking off and not pulling his weight at work." Their boss wasn't happy to hear this and, after looking into it, decided to fire Josh. Without a job and with no paying roommates, Josh lost the apartment too. I only saw Josh once after that, and he looked like he was struggling. It was a tough situation, but it felt like justice was served. Tony and I stayed friends, and I was glad to be out of that toxic living arrangement. This happened a very long time ago, but it was one of the highlights of my middle school experience. Let me set the scene. This was back when I was in the 8th grade, and I was in a tight friend group of people with whom I'd been best friends for 4 years. To understand the whole story, we have to go back 2 years when I was in the 6th grade. All names are fictional. This friend group had 6 people, not including me: Jennifer, Sarah, Nicole, Tara, Robert, and Eric. We all had been friends for at least 3 years by then, and during this time, someone new transferred to our school. Her name was Claudia, and she sat next to me because of alphabetical seating. Claudia and I started talking, and we became friends. I introduced her to my group of friends. Claudia didn't really join our friend group because throughout that year, she was trying to be popular by befriending all the popular groups of people. Later, I found out that she only talked to me because I was friends with a few popular people. I was by no means popular, but I was a talkative person. Claudia ended up being rejected by these popular groups, and tried to befriend my friends and me again. This time around, she specifically took an interest in my friend Sarah. I didn't notice until Sarah told me she was uncomfortable with how Claudia was acting towards her. So I started to distance myself from Claudia. and we just stayed class friends because I really thought she was a good person who was just trying to make friends. Fast forward to the 10th grade, and my friend group was still intact until halfway through the year when we all stopped being friends and started distancing ourselves. I felt left behind because they found new groups, but I was used to our friend group and didn't like the change. This was my fault. I will admit I got clingy because I couldn't accept that we weren't going to stay friends. This led to a very long period of feeling alone and depressed, which wasn't their fault, but it's part of the story. During this time, Claudia was still my friend, and I confided in her. She saw how depressed I was and saw it as the best time to replace me in my friend group. She chose to do this by exposing me as being attracted to multiple genders. We were in a conservative city, to my friends and others. She then started rumors about me, telling my friends I was talking badly about them, and calling me crazy when, in reality, I was going to therapy for my depression and just trying to get better. This went on for a few months until she blatantly told my whole class in front of me that I was a fake female dog, and that I deserved to die. This was when I realized how I thought she was my friend, while, in reality, she didn't care about me at all. I chose to channel my inner strength and made a promise to myself to get my revenge. First, Claudia had the tendency to talk badly about people at our school to me. For the next half-month, I acted like nothing happened and that I was still friends with her. I started collecting screenshots and recordings of her saying all these things and admitting to what she did to other people. Then, on a sunny spring day, I planted a seed of doubt about Claudia by telling one of the popular kids she was trying to befriend that Claudia was talking badly about her. This girl was a gossiper and started spreading it around. When Claudia wasn't around, the gossiping girl told other girls in our class. That's when I let it all out and started showing them what Claudia had been saying. Even though we weren't friends anymore, my ex-friends believed me because Claudia had chosen to talk badly about them to their new group. Then I started getting screenshots from other people about Claudia. I made an anonymous social media account and started posting the screenshots and recordings, personally messaging the people she had been talking badly about. I got people to talk to the guidance counselor about what she had been doing. I also got people who regularly spoke to teachers and deans to discuss what Claudia had been doing in front of or with them. This led to Claudia realizing what was going on. But it was too late. All the people she had been talking badly to and about started to post and tell on her. She ended up being heavily ostracized by our grade and most people at our school because of what she did. She never got punished for what she did. All she did was apologize to my class, but it wasn't with full intentions because she didn't realize how badly she had messed up. She saw the gravity of the situation when she realized it followed her all the way to high school. I really just wanted to tell this story to reminisce about how far I've come. I did forgive Claudia for what she did eventually, since she was still a kid, and I hope she's doing well today. I work in a lab where we share materials and take turns doing chores. It sounds simple enough, right? Well, let me tell you about one of my coworkers, Lisa, who makes this whole sharing thing a nightmare. Lisa and I often do the same kinds of experiments, which means we use the same materials. The problem is, she uses up almost all the materials, and leaves just enough so they're not technically empty. So, every time I go to use them, I don't have enough for my experiments. This means I have to take an extra 30 minutes to an hour to fill everything up before I can proceed. I tried telling our supervisor, Dr. Thompson, but all he did was send around an email saying, "Remember to be kind." Yeah, that didn't help at all. One of the chores we have to do in the lab is filling boxes with plastic tips for pipettes. It's a mindless, tedious task, but it has to be done. Each box takes about 5 minutes to fill. I started saving up my empty boxes for the week Lisa was scheduled to do the chore. I made sure I had enough boxes to equal the time she wasted for me with her inconsiderate behavior. Lisa always saves the chores for the last thing on Friday. So, one Friday, instead of leaving at 5 p.m. with the rest of us, she was stuck in the lab until about 8 p.m. She was fuming. Lisa, Who keeps leaving all these empty boxes? This is ridiculous. Me. They're not empty. I always leave at least one tip in there. Lisa. That's not funny. Do you know how much time this is taking? Me. Do you know how much time it takes me to refill all the materials you leave nearly empty? Lisa glared at me but didn't say anything. She just went back to filling the boxes, muttering under her breath. I couldn't help but smile a little. It was petty, sure, but it felt good to finally get back at her for all the time she'd wasted my time. The next week it was the same story. Lisa left just enough materials so they weren't technically empty, and I had to spend extra time refilling them. But when Friday rolled around, she found herself facing another mountain of nearly empty boxes. Lisa, this is insane. Who keeps doing this? Me. Like I said, they're not empty. There's always at least one tip in there. Lisa, this is so unfair. I have plans, you know. Me. And I have experiments to run. If you could just refill the materials properly, maybe this wouldn't happen. Lisa stomped off, clearly frustrated. I knew she wouldn't change her ways overnight, but it felt good to see her face the consequences of her actions for once. A few weeks went by, and the pattern continued. Lisa would leave the materials nearly empty, and I'd save up my boxes for her chore week. She kept complaining, but she never seemed to learn. Then one day she finally snapped. Lisa, Dr. Thompson, this has to stop. Someone is purposely leaving all these boxes nearly empty just to make my life difficult. Dr. Thompson, is that so? Well, if that's the case, maybe we need to have a talk about lab responsibilities. Me. Actually, Dr. Thompson, I've been doing the same thing Lisa does with the materials. I leave just enough in the boxes, so they're not technically empty. Dr. Thompson looked at me, surprised. Dr. Thompson, is that true, Lisa? Lisa, well, I guess I might have left some things nearly empty, but it's not the same. Dr. Thompson, it sounds exactly the same to me. Maybe now you'll understand how frustrating it is when someone does that. Lisa turned bright red and didn't say anything else. After that, she started refilling the materials properly. It took a while, but she finally got the message. The lab was a much better place after that. I didn't have to waste time refilling materials, and Lisa finally understood the importance of sharing responsibilities. It wasn't the most mature way to handle things, but sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. From then on, whenever Lisa grumbled about lab chores, I just smiled and reminded her, remember to be kind. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences and opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.